heavy metals, the persistent organic pollutants, the opportunistics, and then those are the first three that are tangible, but then the more esoteric ones are the fourth one, the energetics, like the electromagnetic radiation, the cell phone, ambient radiation for cell phones, microwaves, that type of stuff. The fifth one, the emotional psychological component. The sixth one is the foods, the genetically engineered foods, the irradiated foods, not the toxins in the foods, but all these things that we do to food to change them. And then
Don't forget Taco Bell.
Yeah, well, Taco Bell's the food of the gods. That's different. and then the seventh one, spiritual. Those are the 7 toxicities. But if we can effectively remove these toxicities, and the key operative word here is effectively remove them. If you can effectively remove them, because remember, everybody gives lip service to detoxification. But if you can effectively remove these toxicities, there is no way that chronic disease can exist. And that's what our philosophy is. That's what, that's what I've done to my own body, what Jane does, what Josh, all of us get the treatments of what you've experienced firsthand. And my hope and my prayer is that
you don't just get the treatment, you get the royal treatment.
The royal treatment, right. But my hope and prayer is that for the patients that we're treating in your age group and below, the younger population, that they will never see the true benefits, which will be the lack of heart disease and cancer and those other chronic diseases, because the accumulation of those toxins and on the physiology for such a long period is what causes those types of DNA adducts and mutagenic reactions to take place and causes all the disruptions in the normal physiology that result in chronic disease. Right. And so having gone through this treatment, that's a side benefit that, God willing, we'll never even realize that those true benefits, because you'll never see those types of issues arise in David or in the rest of the patient population.
And that's exciting, because when we first started the treatments and the lab results came back, I'll never forget reading that if he hadn't had these treatments, that he was looking at heart disease, he was looking at cancer.
You're looking at the genetic
yes.
genomic testing, yeah, absolutely.
And I was just like, oh my gosh, because I've had cancer, and that's the last thing I want my children to go through. But so many people have it now. But knowing what I know now, he'll never face this, because he's been cleansed of these toxins.
And as long as he keeps himself clean and doesn't put himself in those types of situations to get that kind of exposure, which means no alcohol and no smoking and none of those types of things, no abstination from
nasty stuff.
Yeah, nasty stuff.
Yeah,
that's exactly right.
Even when he mows the lawn, because we have a tractor and it gives off a toxin.
Do they have electric tractors?
He wears a special mask.
Mask, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, actually, like when you're pumping gasoline, I don't know whether they have hybrid tractors, that's a good question, but even when they have, when you're pumping gasoline, keeping your head turned away and making sure you're breathing clean air as opposed to all those organic fumes, because they all have persistent organic pollutants in them. They all have lead and cadmium, and there's mercury, and it's all in there. Combustion of fossil fuel is where one of the leading causes of mercury exposure.
Gotta get away from that stuff.
Yeah.
Well, we were expecting mercury out of David. It shocked me, the levels of lead that came out of David. And he keeps asking me, where did this come from?
Well, partially, but not everything. A lot of it is also to do with what you're inhaling. Lead predominantly was found in lead-based gasoline, and even the unleaded gasoline still has lead base in there. So,
wow.
So, we're grateful that we've had a role, all of us. You've just taken a step forward, and a lot of parents don't want to really talk about it when the child gets better, because it's an emotional thing. And I know that people have, at least a dozen parents have told me they would do anything for me. They would lay down their life for me, but they just don't want to ever go through that emotional pain of remembering what it felt like. And I realize now, after having lectured probably 100 times on this topic, that every time I show a picture of Abia when I'm on stage, no matter how long it's been and he's fine and I don't even think about it, but when I see those pictures, it elicits an emotional response that I have no control over anymore. Yeah. It's just like when you go back home where you haven't been in 30 years. And
deja vu.
Yeah, it's kind of like a deja vu, but it's actually like a reminiscence. You smell that smell of the cookies, and you smell the flowers, and you remember. It brings back this feeling when you were a little child. And it's that type of a response. So I
like those feelings.
It's a great feeling when it's positive, but when it's negative, your mind is saying, well, why am I feeling this way? And your voice is breaking, and you're getting emotional, and yet inside you, you're fine. Everything's fine with it, but it elicits that response. So I can understand why the parents didn't want to talk about it or do anything else. So I appreciate you taking the time to share this with us, and obviously you, David. we should have gotten some of his comedy routines downstairs. And that would
Got a
be-
little.
Got a little. We got a little. All right.